Lots of talk about second year players like Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors, but where on earth is Marvin Harrison Jr.? We'll discuss that here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is the real truth. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL show called The Barbershop. That is one of two shows here on the Locked On NFL network, following Tyler Rowland early in the morning. We come through in the afternoon and try to give you the best coverage from around the National Football League with the use of local experts who have their finger on the pulse of the team best. And we're going to do that here today on this episode that is sponsored and brought to you by Thursday Prize Picks. It's a crossover episode. That is correct. Across our network, we don't cross over here on this show, but everywhere else, Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I'm going to give you a quick rundown here of what we expect to talk about today, or what I expect to talk about here today. We're running a little bit solo dolo today. Guys are out covering their teams. Chiefs, Ravens, critical game coming up this Sunday. In the middle of the show, that's where we're going to end up, fact. In the middle of the show, Commanders, Fountain of Youth. What do I mean by that? I'll tell you. And we're going to start the show talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. not living up to the hype. Quickly, I want to thank you for listening to Locked On NFL, and a reminder that you can follow our shows and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. So go check that out, and shout out to the everydayers who join us here each and every day. You can find us wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap in wherever you watch or listen. A lot of talk about second-year wide receivers and even the first-year players like Travis Hunter. And I know because I'm right here in Jacksonville. Brian Thomas Jr. had a fabulous rookie year, and he's going through a little bit of a slump. Travis Hunter hasn't gotten off to the fast start that everyone anticipated because of the hype, and there's debates and arguments whether or not he was worth trading up for it, all of this stuff, only 3 games into his career. But oblivious to all of this is Marvin Harrison Jr., the guy who's considered the next Julio Jones generational player, went 3rd overall to Arizona. Thought he was going to a good situation with Kyler Murray. It hasn't really materialized itself. My man Alex Clancy makes an appearance here on the Barbershop talking about the Arizona Cardinals, and then we'll get back to why nobody's talking about Marvin Harrison Jr.
What the hell was that? I'm not even talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. mailing it in until the second half. I'm not even talking about the ineptitude and anemia that was infused throughout the majority of the game on offense, compounded by the fact that James Conner's probably gone for the year, and you feel terrible for him. But the absolute terrible situation the Cardinals are in right now is not something that needs to be understated at all, even though it's week 3.
There was expected that there was going to be this uptick in production for Marvin Harrison Jr. in his second year. It hasn't happened. In fact, you just heard my man Alex Clancy from Locked On Arizona Cardinals. He's sitting there saying, using terms like mail it in until the second half. I normally think, especially with guys like, the kid Manning, the Manning kid at Texas, the quarterback, that when you have a big name, I think people usually look at it as they kind of treat you kind of wrong. The expectations start to go up. There's a lot of people think that you got to where you are because of nepotism and all this. That doesn't happen in on the field, because as you see, Arch Manning is having a hard time living up to all of that. And nothing, ball don't lie. Whatever happens on the grass happens on the grass, right? I just think, I don't know if it's because he's on the West Coast. I don't know if because he's on Mountain Time, that no one is really talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of the expectations that came along with it. Being that he's Marvin Harrison Jr. His dad is a Hall of Famer. The fact that his dad's had his hands on him the whole time, He went to Ohio State. When they played against Georgia that night in the national championship game, he looked like the best player on the field. And some people even believe had he not gotten injured, they would have won the game. And things changed when he left the game. Marvin Harrison Jr. hadn't looked like no Julio Jones or hasn't looked like A.J. Green to me. And just wondering why. What is it? How come when certain players don't play well, we like to point to other players or just point to the coach and say he's not being put in the best situation, a la Travis Hunter after 3 games, a la Brian Thomas Jr., who's in a little bit of a slump because he's dropping balls. There ain't enough smoke for Marvin Harrison Jr. If there needs to be smoke for anybody, I'm just saying we need to make sure we balance it out a little bit. Or somebody just do a deep dive and tell me what you see on film and tape that doesn't, translate to what we thought we were getting with Marvin Harrison Jr., which is a generational football player. Unfortunately, those guys have a game tonight, Arizona and Seattle. I know y'all might think it's not real exciting, but you'll learn a lot about teams when you really have to focus on them, and there's not much to look at. So I suggest everybody to tune in. I expect Seattle to win, and I thought Seattle had one of the worst rosters in the league, but it looks like they're a tough bunch that's going to be a hard out for anybody, and it looks like Arizona is really trying to figure out who they are. Staying in that division, the 49ers, man, are 3-0, but I guarantee you they'd rather have a loss than the loss they have on the field, and that is Nick Bosa, one of the top 5 or 6 defensive players in the National Football League, is out with yet another ACL injury. Here's my man Brian Peacock to talk about that from Locked On 49ers.
It's possible that Nick Bosa is never the same after this is his 3rd ACL. Let's be realistic about it, right? That's one of the possibilities that Nick Bosa, I don't think his career is going to be over, but it's probably a little bit more tough to come back from it each time. And you hope he comes back just as strong as he was before. And it's not going to be from a lack of effort and work that Nick Bosa puts in to get back. But maybe do you start losing a step here and there? Maybe you're not quite the explosive guy you used to be. And does that change the trajectory of your career? And that
Jacksonville plays the 49ers this weekend in San Francisco, and I'm telling you something. It got a lot easier for them when it was announced that Nick Bosa was out. However, I don't like the fact that dude's career trajectory is changed by injuries like that. I know it's a part of the game. It's a part of the game that we accept. Make no bones about it. Nick Bosa is one of the best defensive players we've seen in a long time. When I watch him play, I love the way he plays because, as fans of the game, we like to see people give it their all, go all out each and every play like they really, really love the game, like they're excited to be there. And Nick always does that. And too bad for him. You don't want the injury. I hate even saying the word. Sometimes I call it the I word. You don't want injuries to affect guys. But I do think there's a chance that he could come back because he's in such great physical. He's always in really, really good shape. The thing that Peacock said, though, that reigns supreme is at some point the injuries do catch up with you, just like Father Time. And injuries actually make Father Time come a little bit quicker. And even in the eyes of people that want to give you an extension or want to prolong your career, they will always look and say, no, man, you had 3 ACLs, dog. That's a lot. So it affects how people treat you. It affects how they pay you. It also affects how much they play you and depend on you in the future. So let's just hope for him he gets a nice recovery, and hopefully the San Francisco 49ers can play well with some of their young guys, and they're counting on them. They have 3 rookies on the defensive line that are starting, so maybe those rookies will bode well for them. Speaking of rookies that might be better than we thought, the Washington Commanders is one of the oldest teams in the league on paper, and we were all wondering if they were moving too fast, trying to fast track this thing after a surprising first year under Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn, their head coach. One of the ways you can alleviate those concerns is to actually hit in the draft with not just your first round pick, but others. I'm going to let David Harrison tell you about that as soon as you listen to this from our sponsors here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with the can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's nothing that helps you if your team isn't winning. than to be able to win you some money while they're losing. I know you don't have to wager against them, but you can just go ahead and go on there, and you can even take them and the points. And if they lose, but don't lose by as many points as the odds at FanDuel say, you can still win even when they're losing. That's right. I know that's a mouthful. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And today's show is sponsored and presented to you by Wayfair, man. I know when you think game day, you might not think Wayfair, but you should, because Wayfair is the best kept secret for incredible and affordable game day finds. Wayfair has everything you need to get your space ready for the season. Whether you're tailgating outdoors or cheering from your living room, one of the things that I purchased recently, man, was an outdoor cooler. Has this nice little thingy where, you know, people always are missing those bottle openers, right? Now it has a bottle opener attached right to it. It's good if you're going to take it to the games. You can put it in the back of your truck, or it can sit on the back of your porch like mine. Delivery was free, fast, and hassle-free, which is a lifesaver when you need something in time for kickoff. Wayfair is your trusted destination for all things game day, from coolers and grills to recliners and slow cooker. Shop, save, and score today at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, we're moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars. No, we're on Locked On NFL. We're not on Locked On Jaguars today. I'm getting my places of employment confused. It's all good because it's all the same network. We're running solo dolo here on a Thursday as we prepare for our first game of the week involving the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. That will be tonight. Who do I pick? I already said Seattle. I think Seattle's going to win the game. I think they're surprising people, and they play with some toughness. They took some of that toughness from Baltimore. All of those people that came from Baltimore is in Seattle doing pretty good. We'll talk about the Ravens later on, but we're going to talk about a team right up Baltimore-Washington Parkway, about 35 minutes away, or right down Baltimore Parkway. That is Washington. The Commanders have this old roster, and there's a lot of chatter of whether or not they moved too fast because things turned around quickly for them. That can be alleviated by the fact that they draft young guys well. So all of those veterans they went out and acquired, it seems like they have replacements already in their program to help them out. It's a little too early to judge the 2025 draft class. However, David Harrison is going to give you a little bit of an insight to how those dudes are playing so far.
The early returns in the 2025 class look really good. Josh Connolly Jr. has battled through a brutal 3-game stretch, and I think has overall done a pretty stand-up job. Trey Amos looks like a legit cover corner if he can get healthy. Jalen Lane, game changer, 90-yard punt return. Hello. Certainly flashing some ability as a receiver. Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt, 7th-round running back, A-plus fine there in the late rounds, starting his career off, 22 carries, 125 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. That's a great start for a first-round back, let alone a 7th-round back.
Yeah, man, those things will help when you're an old team. And one of the teams I just talked about, the 49ers. Think back, go back and look. You can go to drafthistory.com and look back at the 49ers draft last year with Renardo Green and all of those dudes that Ricky Pearsall. They were an older team that were transitioning to a bunch of new players, right? And they're going to have to do it again because they got some more older guys. They even got guys that are banged up like Nick Bosa, and Trent Williams is still getting older. The thing is they seem to be doing an okay job. So it's not like a total rebuild. It's a little bit like a develop and reload situation. And that's what can help Washington. Washington needs to do the same thing. They hit on rookies last year. They seem to hit on rookies this year so far that are making contributions to the team. That's how you can balance old and new as you're trying to transition from one period to another period. So you always need to hit on draft picks, not just your first and second day guys, but people are still going to judge you based on the decisions that you make. And speaking of old and new, Cleveland got the oldest quarterback in the national football. Joe Flacco might be the oldest human being I've ever seen playing in the NFL, but he won a game last week in a very Cleveland gritty-like fashion, used the running game, played good defense, and when the opportunity came, Joe Flacco stepped up to the plate and delivered. The new people even helped. Quinshawn Judkins got in a little bit of trouble, had to wait to play, but it's already paying dividends for the Cleveland Browns, and they're going to need him along with another pick, Dylan Sampson. And I'll tell you a situation where you have to monitor because of some trades they made and see if they can get this thing. With all of this talk about who the backup quarterback is, they're getting contributions from everybody else. Check this out from my man Spencer German for Locked On Browns.
And I love that you bring up Quinshawn's vision because, Lance, like, I thought it was night and day what we saw the first 2 weeks from both Sampson and Jerome Ford. And no, it's no disrespect to them. Quinshawn is just a different level of a player. And I thought he was every time he got the ball, whether it was a 3-yard gain or these two big run plays that you sort of mapped out for us here, it was like he would see the hole he wanted and he would hit it and he'd make a cut and he'd sometimes make a guy miss and he would just break it for whatever he broke it for. It's just there's a different level to his game that we didn't see the first couple weeks.
So much to break down here. One, the Browns are getting good play out of him and Dylan Sampson, two running backs that they took in the same draft. They have the two backup quarterbacks in Dylan Gabriel, who at some point is probably going to play. I think we're going to see Shedeur Sanders at some point too, because Joe Flacco's older. If Cleveland doesn't really get it together, you need to see what you have, right? Mason Graham played well last week, the defensive tackle that they took when they traded down for Travis Hunter. Now, to always being in Jacksonville, once again, I don't usually talk about the Jaguars as much because this is a national show. But one of the things that folks were talking about with Travis Hunter was it worth it? And did Cleveland make a mistake? They have an extra first-round pick next year. The way the Jags are playing is probably going to be in the second half of the first round. That's just me thinking real optimistically, but they're 2-1 right now, and they should be 3-0. But the thing is okay, both of their running back. When you're Cleveland, you want to just say, did we hit on the players? Can they play? So far, so good. They can play, right? Was it worth it? Those are questions that are going to be answered in both cities. So the Jaguars have two running backs, Bashal Tutin as well as LaQuint Allen. They chose them in round 4 and round 7. That's day 3 running backs, or 2 day 3 running backs, versus a guy that was chosen early in the second round along with an early day 3 guy. That's how you'll measure it. Like, okay, we traded with you guys. Y'all got that, but we got this. So it might work out for both teams because if all of the players involved can play, it's neither here nor there. But it's going to always come back to being a comparison. Right now, I'm going to give Cleveland a good grade because at least they got guys that can actually produce and change the outcome of games on the football field. I want to talk about two teams, man, that are in situations that they normally aren't in. That's the Chiefs and the Ravens. We'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. You need to buy tickets. There's only one place for you to be doing that, and that is at Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping. At checkout, it can be very, very frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Pull up that Game Time app and find out which one of those road games you're going to go to, man. Make it a trip. You, your wife, kids, you're going to get the best price, man. Ain't nothing wrong with traveling with your team and going to a new city you've never been to. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, we're moving and grooving, man. Here's segment 3, where it is always your team every day here on Locked On NFL. I'm Tony Wiggins here in the barbershop. We thank you for making us your first listen. Check out Tyler Rowland in the morning, man. The madman will wake you up like a double shot of espresso, and I'll give you some water in the middle of the day when you're sweating and worried about your team here in the barbershop. Get a little tightened up with a little bit of barbershop humor here as we use the local experts from around the National Football League to give you the absolute best coverage. So make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcasts. the Chiefs and Ravens. One of them's both of those teams are 1-2. Somebody's going to be 1-3 because they play this week. Don't know who I'm picking, but they both have different things that they're really, really dealing with. Both have played relatively tough schedules early in the year, but pardon me, I'm not going to cry. Nobody's going to feel sorry for either one of them. Going to hear from the Chiefs about what some of their problems are here early in the season.
So now they're going up against a team that is a whole lot better than the New York Giants and the Baltimore Ravens. And if they come in with the same performance that they brought to New York, they're not beating the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they have to continue to dial it up.
And it goes further than that for me, because when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be just as desperate as Kansas City is. They're 1-2. They've lost 2 games. They need to win this next game just as much as Kansas City is going to. But
I'm going to favor Baltimore because this will give them a chance to slay the dragon, if you will. They've lost these games at Kansas City and games against Buffalo. Those are the 2 teams right now that are standard bearers or have been the standard bearers. And we have Baltimore in that circle too, but they're the one team that can't get over the hump to beat either one of those teams when they have to. So this one doesn't matter as much because it doesn't have playoff implications or going to the Super Bowl or advancing to the next round. But it does matter a little bit to give Baltimore a little bit of – they've been screwing themselves over in these games. They could literally look back at the last 4 games they played against these teams and say, you know what? If we just clean our own mess up, we can win. And that's what they have a chance to do this weekend. Although we know the Chiefs are a little bit down. They have to get some people back. The offensive line is yet to gel. The defense has slipped a little bit. It's still the Chiefs, man. And it's still a game. When you look at the logo, it's a road game. They have a chance to do something and to get themselves back on track, at least mentally, and start playing more like the Baltimore Ravens that we expect. Now, for them to do that, like I just said, they got to get out of their own way. Here's my man, Kevin Oestreicher, and he'll tell you right now why the Ravens are having problems in an area where they are traditionally strong, and it's a little bit worrisome.
The real problem here is the pass rush for the defense. The pass rush is just absolutely non-existent. No Nando Madubuike. We didn't get an update from John Harbaugh on him, so we don't know what's going on there. And even with Madubuike and Van Noy, the pass rush wasn't really great to begin with. But the thing with the Lions, and this is what we were talking about in the first part of the show, right, where the Lions were getting pressure when blitzing. They were getting pressure when just sending 4 or 3 and using a spy. They were dropping their safeties back. They were still getting pressure all the time. The Ravens couldn't get anything. 7 sacks for the Lions on Lamar Jackson. 0 sacks for the Ravens on Jared Goff. 0. That you can't have that. Jared Goff picked them apart all night. That's a huge problem because, like, as I mentioned, the pass rush has not been good all season to start. Yes, you're only 3 weeks in, but we are 1 week away from it being a month into the season, and that's a trend. That is a trend. So I don't know if Eric DeCosta is going to make a move, try to find someone. It probably depends on Nando Madubuike's status, if he's healthy or not, if he's going to be able to play again this season or not. We just don't know.
I'm going to tell you what the Ravens remind me of. Here's the Locked On NFL barbershop Tony Wiggins analogy. I lost a lot of weight. Over the last 18 months, I think I've lost 48 pounds, right? You know what I didn't lose? Love handles. And that little pooch I got in the front. But I'm 56 years old. I don't be caring about that. My wife loves me exactly the way I am. In fact, she told me if I lose too much weight, she wants a teddy bear. She wants a big man. So I'd rather be Gerald Levert if I have to. Shout out to the late, great Gerald Levert. I don't have to be Denzel. I can be Gerald Levert and be just as cuddly. That's fine. But the Baltimore Ravens can't because they want to win the Super Bowl. So what the Ravens have done is they've gone to the gym every day. They work out. They trim the fat, but they got a problem area. They got love handles. They got football love handles, and they can't shake them, man. It's like people always say, you lose all that weight, you do all of that, and then you get right to the very end, and that one little problem area, those last 2 or 3 pounds in that problem area won't go away. Their problem area is when they play a really, really good team, when it really, really all matters, when they really get the chance to change narratives, they actually play well enough to do it, and then the boogeyman jumps out of their own closet, and they start self-destructing. And you can literally see it happening each and every time they do it. They did it against the Lions. They've done it in a couple of games against the Chiefs and against the Buffalo Bills. And you're like, come on, man. At some point, nobody's going to give you credit. for always being in shape. They're just going to say, you show up at the gym all the time, but you got that little stuff, you got that little tire around your waist. They got to get rid of the tire. Usually it's because you're eating bad. It's what you're not doing in front of everybody. You work out in front of everybody. Nobody's following you around watching what you eating. Maybe that tire's there because of what you ain't cut all your habits off. Or you could just have to get surgery and get lipo. And if they do that, that means they got to change a lot about their team, but you can't do that during the season. So this is a chance for you, even if you fool people because you're beating a team in Kansas City that isn't quite themselves either. They got love handles now, and they ain't used to having them. Shout out to Andy Reid, my fellow big guy. But you see my point. My point is what are you going to do, Baltimore? People are tired of talking about you, saying how great you are, pointing to stats like Lamar Jackson not having interceptions, having the greatest stats on earth. But for some reason, this team, Derrick Henry being great, and he is, and he still is, and he's a tough guy, stiff-arming people his whole career, and now he's dropping the ball on the ground. Mark Andrews, one of the best guys on and off the field, a really, really good player, dropping critical passes. Zay Flowers fumbling at the goal line. These aren't like the role players. These are the best players. Lamar Jackson fumbling in playoffs. These are the best players on the team screwing these games up. I know a striker said from Locked On Ravens, he said they got pass rush issues. Yeah, they do because we're used to seeing them with pass rush, right? They're losing games when they're scoring 30 points. Yeah, they are. They scored 40 and lost the game this year. So it's not necessarily the fault of the guys that are scoring all of those points, putting up those stats. They're not supported the way they have been in the past by having a stellar defense. But when you watch the game, it's those guys making mistakes at critical points in the game. So they're going to have to find a way to get over that. I think this weekend is, even though it's not quite the same and the stakes aren't as high, it is a way to put a check in a box and say, okay, we're over it. And then fans will get back to saying, okay, you got to go and win the Super Bowl by 2 touchdowns to prove it. That's just the way we treat Baltimore, or people treat Baltimore, and it continues to happen. This will continue to happen here on Locked On NFL too, man. Make sure you tap in each and every day so you do not miss an episode. It is your team every day. Tyler Rowland will hit you early in the morning. He'll tell you about last night's game. And we'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL.